Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, and today I have with me Tom McClintock,
That's right.
and Senior Client Service Manager at Empowered Margins. Tom, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
Thanks very much for having me, Tony. I'm doing well, thanks.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And for the listeners, today we are dealing with a few technical difficulties, so be patient with us. It took us about 15 minutes to get the thing going, but we're here. And one of the technical difficulties is that I was at uh, Rice, Rising Insurance Star Executives Leadership Summit and Award ceremony for the last few days, and I got very little sleep. And I flew home today this morning on 3 hours of sleep. So we will see if Red Bull actually gets me through this one. And then we had some issues with the microphone and stuff, but Tom's been very patient. Thank you so much. So Tom and I met at Insurtech Hartford Symposium 2024. And that was a couple months ago.
That was in April, and then we saw each other a couple of weeks ago in New York at Insurtech
Insurtech
Insight.
Insights New York. Perfect. Yes, yes. So I am we're recording on June 21st, which means that my marathon spring conference season ends next week at Dig In, and I'll be able to take a very deserved vacation to Costa Rica for 3 weeks. I'll be working from there, but yes, I am tired. I've been on the road for a lot of the last couple months. Okay, so Tom, we always give the guest the chance to give the elevator pitch. What is Empowered Margins?
Well, Empowered Margins is an Insurtech provider. We've been in business for the past decade. We work with a lot of different carriers, actuarial firms, underwriters, brokers. We really work throughout the gamut of the insurance industry. Although I will say that we specialize particularly in underwriting and actuarial software because we feel that that portion of the business has been somewhat ignored as far as data tech has gone. There are lots of opportunities out there for brokers to understand more of what their clients and prospects need, but we also need to support the guys with the calculators who are making it all work. And so there's a lot of actuarials and underwriters use a cutting edge technology called Microsoft Excel. And it's frankly, it was great in the 80s and maybe even in the 90s, but by the 2020s, we really need to be centralizing things and not having workflow stop because I didn't open the attachment or something like that. So some of our solutions address that directly. We also do a lot of data management and custom work, and we have about 70 Insurtech engineers who are just constantly working with these new technologies. We're headquartered in Colorado Springs, and we're a global company.
Fantastic. Thank you. That was an absolutely great introduction. All right. So you work with carriers, actuarial firms, underwriters, brokers, and basically the overall industry. And especially in the
With like, for example,
underwriting.
like Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And we do a lot of pretty sophisticated data management. We're HIPAA compliant, we're ISO 9000 compliant, we're SOC 2 compliant.
Okay. Is the focus excuse me, is the focus a lot in the health insurance space, or are you distributed among all the different spaces
We
of
actually
insurance?
started our insurance journey in healthcare benefits. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where our background is. Although in more recent years, we have gone into the P&C realm. We started with workers' comp and we've branched out from there. So data is data, and every
Mhm.
industry works with data. We
Uh-huh.
have another side of our business is a healthcare practice. And so we work a lot with healthcare concerns. So it was only natural that we would work with health insurance. But we're not limited to that.
Okay. So I I I'm a PNC guy, so you'll have to guide me a little bit as to what healthcare looks like when it comes to this problem. Okay. On the PNC side, I am not an actuary, but I have recruited many actuaries, and I have worked with many chief actuaries to help them recruit. And what became clear to me is that the great majority of actuarial work in the PNC space is done with Excel and SQL, basically. Uh, so what does it look? What did it look like in the healthcare actuarial side? So the actuaries for health insurance companies. What did their work look like before you guys came along?
Well, it's actually it's not that different from the PNC side. I would say that one thing to consider with healthcare is that you are you're taking care of a whole group of employees in a lot of cases. If you're a payer,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to support all of those employees, and they all have different medical histories. They all have different medical conditions. They're all at different levels of risk. Whereas, with a car, you're basically paying the owner of the car for whatever your policy is covering in the event of an incident.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is a little more complicated on the healthcare side because I might be a smoker or I might not be a smoker, and it changes the whole dynamics of the pool. So that adds some complexity. From our standpoint, when we started working with benefits, we would run into the problem that employers can't very easily shop different plans on an apples to apples basis because it was so complicated.
Mm-hmm.
If you had enough people who were older or enough people who were younger, the benefits of the plan may be exactly the same, but the risk may be very different. So what we would do, we have a product, for example, called UW Data Hub, Underwriting Data Hub. And the idea behind that is to create apples to apples comparisons across different benefits packages so that an employer, or I would say rather a broker, could go to an employer and say, look, here over the past 6 years, this is one policy that we could offer your company, and you can see what the outlays have been, how many incidents there have been, and so forth. Or we could switch it. If you wanted to pay a smaller premium, you could provide some fewer benefits and it would look like this. Or if you wanted to increase what you're paying and maybe retain more of your employees, then that's what the scenario would look like. So it immediately provides all of the different scenarios, and they are managed from a data standpoint so that it really is an apples to apples comparison.
Fantastic. Um, what is the implementation like? So if if you're a health insurance carrier and you've been doing it the old-fashioned way, and you want to bring in empowered margins, uh, what does it look like? Is it
The implementation?
yeah?
Yeah. Well, basically, if we were to go with that same product, UW Data Hub, it centralizes the whole quoting process. So it takes in all of this data, makes it on an apples to apples basis, and then it prompts the next person in the workflow what the step is. So let's say I'm a broker and I want to sell this policy, or I want to bring in the new client, and they've picked the policy that they want. Well, then we've got to get it to the underwriters to see how well that policy applies to the actuarial tables. And the software will just do that. You know, in the old world, I would have been emailing a spreadsheet and waiting for them to get the spreadsheet. And you know, you've got a turnaround of it at least a few days there. Sometimes it was a couple of weeks before the broker could get back to the client with an actual policy for them to sign off on. But not so now. It literally does the mathematical comparisons in under 60 seconds, you know, while you watch. We're doing a demo now. You'd see it all tabulate and it boom comes up with the answer, and it will bind it into a policy and just print it out or email it. And if there are any flags, if you know the actuarial team had a question, it'll prompt that broker, hey, we need some more information. Or if the underwriters had a question, same thing. It'll prompt for whatever information is needed. So anytime you log in, you get exactly, you know, what's next in the process. And even if you don't log in, you still get notifications. And it can connect with any model. We have one partner that we work with that has attached a very sophisticated AI model in terms of, you know, what the risk is. And in the years that they have been doing that, the accuracy has gone up tremendously. So the old-fashioned pencil and paper guesstimates, you don't need to do anymore. You can do very accurate risk modeling through this software. And I think it's very exciting because you get a faster turnaround and you get a more accurate turnaround. So the employees they know that they're covered, they know what they're paying, and the insurance carrier, they know what they have to cover and they know what they're getting in. So it really is a win-win.
Fantastic. Quick PSA for the listeners, and it doesn't matter if you're in health, in life, or in PNC. Emailing spreadsheets should be illegal.
Yeah.
If your process involves emailing a spreadsheet, now we have two versions of the damn thing, and that is not good for anybody. So yeah, some sort of. So I love the fact that it eliminates that problem, along with improving so many other things. Very, very, very cool. Well,
it's just there's so much in the technology that you can do now. You know, when you think about, I mean, certainly at the conferences we were at, everyone was talking about AI. You couldn't have a conversation with somebody unless you started with the letters AI. And then like OCR, optical character recognition, you know, we're now reading title deeds like they were structured data all along, even though some of them are written like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, maybe even older, with lots of cursive flares and even some calligraphy and things like that. And now all that data becomes structured. Pretty soon, there's not going to be a difference between unstructured and structured data, which opens up whole new worlds of possibilities in terms of efficiency, workflow, accuracy, you name it.
Fantastic. Fantastic. What I'm always curious what the feedback that the clients are giving you. So you've been doing this for a while. You have plenty of companies that are fully launched with your product. What kind of feedback do they give you? And you're, from our perspective, you're free to use client names. You don't have to if you're not supposed to.
Well, I don't want this to sound like a sales pitch because I'm really honestly on to talk about, data, and I get personally excited by what you can do with that.
Awesome.
But yeah, I'm happy to brag briefly to say that
Okay.
um, our clients love us. I mean, I've worked, so I haven't always been with Empowered Margins. I've been with technical companies since the 90s. And I've worked with some very strong tech teams, but I've never worked with a tech team as strong as Empowered Margins.
Okay.
And that's saying a lot because I've worked with some pretty smart folks over the years. But Empowered Margins is always able to um, do the requirements phase very carefully, very accurately, and they always come in under budget and ahead of schedule, or at least on time.
That's a
And
big,
I've never seen a tech team that was able to do that.
that is
They're
a big
always been.
promise right there.
Yeah, no, it is really something. Many of our folks have master's degrees and advanced certifications and acronyms that I can't even spell. But they do quite a good job, and we get a lot of praise. I mean, as I say, you can't work on the data for some of these major carriers unless you do it flawlessly. And I'm proud of our guys. I really do. Really am. So
Fantastic. So you talked about how you're passionate about and so excited when you talk about the future of what we can do with data in insurance. How so? Give me some examples of why is it so exciting?
well, I just think we're finally getting out all of the preliminary junk out of the conversation.
Uh-huh.
We are now at the point where, I've got telematic information telling you about my driving. Now, there's a caveat here, and if my wife were on here, she would definitely want me to say that privacy concerns are real, and we want to be careful about Big Brother. We want to be careful who's doing what with the data. That's
Mm-hmm.
really concerning. That's something, frankly, I didn't really take seriously as much as I should have until the past, I would say, 5 years or so, because things have just leapfrogged. I used to think, oh, who cares if somebody sees, I don't know, my Facebook account, and they know, that I went to the movies or something. But I have to admit, I was wrong on that, and privacy is a big deal. That said, if, you know, assuming we can control that, and, we'll have to watch the next Terminator installment to find out if we can or not. But if we can do that, then the efficiency gains are tremendous, because I don't have to tell you I'm a good driver. You've got the data to prove it. Or if I'm a bad driver, you've got the data to show that as well. In terms of healthcare, um, if I'm following healthy habits, I should be rewarded from an insurance premium standpoint. And if I choose not to follow, I'm all about personal freedom. So if you want to smoke, go right ahead. But that not everyone should have to pay for that.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think that this the ability of cross-referencing data and giving the right audience the right information at the right time allows things to be more accurate and more fair. And I think it also saves a lot of time. We just talked about cutting a 1 week, 2 week process into 60 seconds. So if we can do that, think about what we can do with that time that we've freed up. I mean, that's tremendous. So, maybe there will be a point where we have 4-day work weeks instead of 5 or 6-day work weeks.
I
And it's kind of funny because obviously as technology has grown, our work weeks have not shrunk. But I do think that there is if it's carefully orchestrated, there is a huge opportunity for a new productivity boom.
all right. There was a lot there. Most of which I agreed with. Um,
Oh, we'll start with what you didn't agree with.
fantastic. This is getting interesting. This is getting interesting. Okay. So I the insurance implications of what you already talked about, I agree. The better data, telematics, et cetera, allows us to make better risk-based decisions, and the more transparency that we can provide on the data that we're using, uh, the better we do for our customer, and the more profitable we can be also.
At Empowered Margins, we like to say there's no bad risk, there's just bad rate.
Absolutely, no, and that is a truism in our industry. Now, your rate to cover your $1 million home on the water in Miami, Florida, built in 1935 with no hurricane protection. If things continue the way they're going, your rate might end up looking a lot like the value of your home, right? Like right, like you might be paying $100,000 a year to insure $1 million home, because the risk is so heavy, right? But yes, there is definitely there should be a rate for every risk. I agree on that. I really found interesting the part about medical health decisions. Okay, I'm a great example. I don't make great decisions when it comes to how I care for myself. I eat not well, right? I don't eat any vegetables. I don't eat any fruits, and historically, I don't exercise. That has improved recently. Okay, but I do like the idea of having good information to make those decisions, and I completely agree that my health insurance premium should be higher than my my sister, who is vegetarian and exercises obsessively, right? And if it wasn't for the new sources of data we have, it would be very hard to offer her those discounts that she does deserve. Okay, so I do agree with that. The smoking comment was very interesting. I and this is more a value judgment and a like ethical point of view than an insurance one. Um, we definitely need, insurance wise, we need to be able to differentiate between smokers and non-smokers, right? That's like absolutely crucial. And if we can differentiate between people like myself that eat badly and people that eat well, that'd be fantastic. If we can differentiate between people that drive well and people that don't, that's fantastic. Um, uh, Personally, uh, smoking, uh, I, I do think smoking should be illegal, because I the reason I believe that I agree with you that number one, a non-smoker shouldn't be paying for the healthcare of a smoker. Uh, but uh, smoking is with the science we have today a product that literally has no benefits. All it does is damage. So I do think that we should. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, there's a country, and I can't remember who, a small country recently, just a few weeks ago, made smoking illegal for anybody born after X year. So basically, as the time passes, So basically,
So if you're old and frail, it's okay to smoke,
no,
but
and
if you're young and healthy, it's a bad idea.
here's the interesting part. Okay, here's the interesting part of how they're doing it. And again, like we're way on a tangent, but I'm enjoying it. So the interesting part about how they're doing it is that year. So let's say that its birth date year 2000. Okay. Uh, and in fact, if I'm not mistaken, the year is birth year year 2008. Okay, so basically, those kids today can't legally smoke. They're not 18 yet. Okay, they will turn 18 if the law doesn't change, and they will continue to not have the right to smoke. And as time passes, basically, the people that have the legal right to smoke will pass away, and we will have been able to eliminate cigarettes from the country. Hopefully, right? There'll probably be some black market, etc. But I like the idea that it's a great way to eliminate a product that I really see no reason for it to exist anymore now that we know what we know. Okay, but I'm way off on a tangent.
Well, okay, so I'm happy to get back to insurance in a second, but I would say on that,
Yeah,
and I'm not a smoker.
me neither.
I'm surprised I'm coming on your podcast as an advocate for smoking. I've never actually even had a single cigarette in my life.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I never, I was not interested in it from the very
Good.
beginning. However, I used to live in Washington, DC.
Uh-huh.
And after work, we would often, on the way to the metro, there might be a bar that you'd go in. And I remember meeting a young woman who worked as a lobbyist for the cigarette companies.
Uh-huh.
This is
That
in
would be
like
a super
1993
interesting
or something.
conversation. Okay, uh-huh.
I know. And I said, well, wow, what do you say? Like, how do you feel about your job? And she said, well, do you like cheeseburgers? And I said, sure, I like cheeseburgers. And I said, well, what would you do if there was a bill to ban cheeseburgers? Because they're not really healthy.
They're
Like,
definitely
shouldn't
not. And I love them.
we eat healthy? I mean, what's wrong with and I realized what she was saying was that once the government comes in and starts to decide what healthy behavior is, it's open to a lot of first speculation and second,
Mhm.
even corruption.
Yeah.
Because really, I mean, if you ban smoking, do you ban vaping? Do you ban homemade cigarettes? Do you ban pipe smoking? Where does do you ban cheeseburgers? Like,
Uh,
where does it
yeah.
end?
The argument is a good argument for a lobbyist, for sure. And the argument is not incorrect in its basic premise of cheeseburgers are bad for you, right? Because they are. But cheeseburgers have two advantages, and she could have used pizza. She could have used a lot of different things, right? I get that. But cheeseburgers are a good example. Cheeseburgers do have a positive to them. They are food. If you eat too many of them, they give you bad cholesterol, etc. Right? They cause obesity, etc. But
A
that's if
lot
you.
of people enjoy smoking. They get, they, they get a big psychic benefit out of it,
Ah,
as
okay, okay,
an
okay, okay,
economist would
okay.
say. So
Okay, so yes, smoking does release dopamine. If I'm not mistaken, that's how it works. Okay, but it does it using the most addictive substance known to man. Uh,
yeah,
so
and that's why
so
I don't smoke. And
so
I think if you don't want to smoke, you shouldn't smoke. And everyone should make that decision for themselves, and then we shouldn't bear the cost of people making bad
we
decisions,
we
which is
we
where the
we
data
we
improves
agree.
the billing.
Mhm. We agree on that on that side, on that we shouldn't bear the cost of the other people doing it. But it's very hard not to bear the cost. For example, uh, I'm old enough to remember when people could smoke at the bar. right? In most states, you can no longer do that. I remember in Iowa, I was living in Iowa at the time. I remember when it changed. And I remember smokers being super upset about that change, because yes, like I can totally see how if you're having a drink and you're a smoker, you probably want to have a smoke too. But by having a smoke, you're dirtying my air, right? You're causing a negative externality that you should not have a right to cause. So I would be perfectly okay with a smoker smoking only in their own homes where they cannot hurt anybody else. Uh, but here's the other tricky part. Our central cortex, and this is fairly new research, and disclosure, I am not a scientist, right? Let's be clear on that. But the last 15, 20 years of brain science research has found that the central cortex, which is the part of the brain that makes long-term decisions, doesn't finish forming in women until they're about 25, and in men until they're about 30. That's why this idiot got married at 24 to an 18-year-old. That did not go well. But basically, if cigarettes are to remain legal, in my opinion, they should not be legal until you're like 35. And we would need a way to be 100% on that, which is impossible, right? There's always a black market, and right. So basically, because yes, I want adults to be able to decide to do something that is bad for them but not bad for anybody else. But when it comes to their brains, to humans, we are not able to make those decisions, even with otherwise cigarettes wouldn't sell in countries where the box has a picture of somebody dying, which it does in several countries, right? Like the warnings don't work.
I don't think the government is any better at figuring out how you spend your money than you are.
Oh, yeah, no, the government's horrific at the way it spends our money. That's for sure. And I do also that the second part of her argument, going back to lobbyist, the second part of her argument is so the first part of her argument, in my opinion, I am not an expert in logic, but in my opinion, it's reducing, like, the comparison of cigarettes versus versus a cheeseburger. It reduces the argument to a straw man, and it also reduces what's the other fallacy, to an extreme that's not the reality of the argument we should be having, and also the what's it called, the slippery slope argument, because he's also saying that if they can ban cigarettes, how do you know they're not going to ban your cheeseburger 10 years down the road, right? We shouldn't trust the government to do that. Well, yes.
I heard a cigarette is a gateway drug to cheeseburgers.
Whatever, right? Like, but and it is a fair argument, but when you dig into it, that argument could be used for anything. We should not let the government regulate speed on the highway. I should be able to run my Porsche at its maximum. I don't have a Porsche, by the way. I would love to. I should be able to run my Ferrari at its maximum speed of 225 miles an hour. After all, I paid for it, right? Why do we let the government regulate that and not other things? What I'm saying is by that logic, we couldn't regulate anything. We would be living in complete
I'm
anarchy.
not a libertarian. I mean, I'm not against the speed limit, and we do regulate cigarettes. We say that you can't have them if you're 18 or under. We say that you can't smoke them in almost every public place now. So there are a lot of restrictions. I think that's
Absolutely.
that should be up to, you know, the bar owner in your example. The bar owner should decide, do I want to have people smoking and drinking or just drinking? And whatever they decide, I think is valid. And if I don't want to go to that bar, I'll go to somebody else's bar. But I really am amazed how far I got you off
I know, I
insurance
know.
and
No, no,
data. I
I
wasn't
was thinking
expecting
that
that.
too. That is one of the beauties of this podcast is that I'm a giant insurance nerd, but the podcast is a hobby. So like I don't have like sponsors to worry about or anything like that.
Right.
So I can go on giant tangents. It has been really interesting. We should definitely rein it back. And especially I'm especially thankful for the story of the lobbyist because I was a little young in the 90s to have that experience of like running somebody like that. And it would have been a super interesting conversation. So thank you.
It
Uh,
was, yeah, I fondly remember her. Um, I'll end the smoking thing with one
uh,
observation that my dad used to make. He said smoking is not as addictive as it's made out to be because his evidence was in the late sixties, nearly every adult in America smoked. I mean, it was just very, very common. You would
yes,
always have a
yes,
pack of cigarettes
yeah.
on you.
And
And by
smoked
the
in the
early
office. Yeah.
seventies, he points out 90% of them had quit. Like it was, our society almost overnight went from a lot of heavy smoking to hardly any smoking, as a percentage basis. So I don't
Well,
know. I don't know what you
well,
want to do with that, but I thought it was
yeah.
kind of a neat observation.
It is on its face. It's an interesting observation, and because I hadn't heard it before, I've never dug into it. But it's an interesting one. Thank you for sharing that. Uh,
Sure.
all right. So bringing it back to insurance to close. Um, okay. So I am looking at the company website because I normally do that. Okay. So you guys serve uh carriers, underwriters. You also serve associations. So,
Yes, yes. So I
so
mentioned we had a healthcare side.
mhm,
We also have a third side, which is for associations and nonprofits. So we do a lot of work for, because again, it's all data management. Like
absolutely.
everybody needs data.
Okay.
And everyone needs the right data and they
Hmm.
need to filter out the wrong data. So associations and nonprofits really struggle with tight budgets and
Uh-huh.
they're trying to lift the tide of the entire industry. If I'm the American Nurses Association, I'm trying to make nursing work better for everybody, for patients, for nurses, for hospitals. So it makes sense that they would have um, an opportunity to get the best technology that's out there.
I agreed a
And so
thousand
we
percent.
really try to support associations. Healthcare, we really try to support healthcare because everyone needs good healthcare. And in fact, we've worked specifically with the IDD community, the intellectually or developmentally disabled.
Hmm.
We've created an electronic medical records software because a lot of IDD care was provided using paper notebooks. I'd have a binder and I'd fill out a form and I'd keep the forms in the office and so forth. So we've basically brought automation to that sector. And it's been badly needed because there was a lot of Medicare dollars that were being wasted. There was um, a lot of patient care that was not being provided because people just didn't have the information that they needed. In fact, we worked on an IoT device to monitor um, patients' blood pressure, their sleep, collecting all that data. You could do predictive analytics and figure out if you don't have good sleep the night before, and you can tell me from your experience last night if this is true, but you don't you don't function as well the
Oh my
next
God.
day.
I
And, and
yes.
but but if you were in the IDD part of the community, you might not be able to express that as well as you did. And so if I'm a caregiver to you and I can tell without you having to articulate, hey, I didn't get enough sleep last night and I've been really, it might explain why your heart rate is higher, and things like that. So having that information on an IoT device is super helpful for providing proper care.
Absolutely.
So we work with three sectors: associations, healthcare, and insurance. And again, we work with insurance because again, that's a crucial area. We need to protect against risk, and we need to give people the opportunity to maximize, their lives and their budgets and their standards of living. And there's no industry that does that as well as insurance, I think.
Uh, a 1,000%, 1,000, and we
Okay,
don't.
so now
eh,
now I'm on your good
Oh,
side. I
no, no,
I
no,
guess I shouldn't light a cigarette.
no, no. It like I I'm definitely the nerdy weirdo that in enjoys a good debate. Uh,
Likewise.
and this
I
was
like that too.
we ran out of time a little bit, and we didn't know that we'd be debating about, so we didn't go prepare for this one.
Well, you
But,
can have me back anytime. We'll talk about
for
anything you
real,
want.
for real, no, but this is exactly the kind of conversation that I enjoy. So so you're my good side, that's for sure. Uh,
Likewise. Thank
perfect,
you.
perfect, perfect. Okay, so closing words. The listeners who listened all the way to this point, how do how do they know that they should go ahead and give you a call and take a look at what you the system that you guys offer? Um, like, where do they need to be in their journey?
That's easy. That's easy. If your workflows are running exactly the way you want them to, and you have all the information you need whenever you need it, then you're good. I don't think I could help. But if that's not the case, if it's not your grandfather's cloud. You can now connect anything to anything.
Oh my god,
So
I'm gonna pause you. I want to pause you right there. This is okay. First of all, that is the best end of podcast pitch I've ever had, because no insurance company is at the point where they couldn't use help in having the right data at the right place. And number two,
then give me a call.
and so yes, so when this goes live, I will tag your LinkedIn and the company on it, so that people can easily get a hold of you. And number two, I've heard people say this isn't your grandfather's insurance industry, this isn't your grandfather's uh yeah, but I've never heard anybody join grandfathers and cloud, because cloud is a fairly new, right? Let's say
We,
what,
we've
15
been
years
in the
maybe,
cloud for over 10 years. A lot of
10 years. Okay,
people don't realize that.
okay, so
I mean,
basically,
it's really 15 or almost 20 years.
okay,
I mean, it's been a generation. It used to be that getting on the cloud was like the new thing. It was
uh-huh,
right after mobile. Mobile hit it overtook computers in 2012. And right after that, it was like, hey, everybody, you got to get on the cloud because it's a better way to manage your data. And they're right.
uh-huh, uh-huh,
But that was a generation ago. So now, in the second generation of being in the cloud, we need to be using smarter APIs. We need to have better scripts. We need to be able to connect anything to anything, because that data that's out there, it's, people used to talk about big data. That's the third party data that you can connect in, and people are doing that now. But we've been doing it now for so long that there are better ways to do it than the first ways that we initially came up with.
thank
So
you.
yeah, those systems need review. It's just like if you bought a Macintosh computer in 1986 and you kept it for 15 years, you'd want to take a look at what else is out there in
um
computers these days.
people,
Same
if
with the
you're
cloud.
uh, as an Apple nerd, people, if you are running a 5-year-old Mac, go ahead and update it. They're much better now. If you are running a Mac that's not on Apple Silicon, if it's running the old, oh my God, it's so much better. And if you do any video, get a MacBook Pro. From the last couple of years, they're amazing. Especially if you want to do 4K. Totally worth it. Tom, a real pleasure. And the cloud piece, that is that we might have to record again to dig deeper into that.
There's a
Into
lot there to uncover.
perfect,
Absolutely.
perfect. So do me a favor. Grab another time and let's specifically record on that question on what should my cloud be doing nowadays,
Okay.
because
Okay.
and remind me that's what we're going to record about, because yes, you're the first person I've ever had on the podcast, or like you're the first person I run into that helped me understand that there is such a thing today, because I'm a non-technical, right? I'm an insurance nerd, not an IT guy. uh I had no idea that like not every cloud is right. Like in my mind, the cloud is just right. I like the T-shirt that says the cloud is just somebody else's computer. Uh,
Hmm.
but my understanding of it, I mean, I know that the main providers are AWS, and I've even recruited for people that work on them. But yeah, I definitely want to dig further into this topic, and we're out of time today.
Happy to do that. I'll book another call.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a
My
pleasure.
pleasure.